Hi, I interviewed my dad for my final project interview. My dad is the owner and chef of Goldie Burgers in Forest Park, which has been open for 31 years. Goldie's has been open since my birth, and I grew up running around the restaurant and seeing it through a kid's eyes. The first day I was there, even though I don't remember it, I feel like I just fell in love with it. It's my second home, and there isn't any other place I'd rather be. I love my dad, and I know that his own experiences would be the best that I could learn from. Although he isn't an acclaimed chef or doesn't have a Michelin star, I know that my dad would be completely honest and personal with me, and I knew that I would learn so much from him after this experience. I'm glad to say that I absolutely did. Goldie's is obviously a small business, so there isn't an HR department there at all. When I asked my dad what it was like not having an HR department, he laughed and said it certainly would have made things a lot easier over the years. My dad told me that one of the most important things about being an owner of a restaurant is being able to identify and relate to your employees. Every employee is different, he told me. You have to learn what employees you need to pull aside and give them advice when they're doing something wrong, and what employees need to be yelled at in order to change. Everyone is different, and my dad said that he didn't really realize this until opening the restaurant. My dad opened the restaurant after about 2 years of college. He didn't feel like school was the right path for him, and at that time, culinary school didn't really seem like an option either. My dad was married to my mom at this time, and she wanted them to open a liquor store. However, my dad's love of food and life, and of course drink, pushed him to decide to open Goldie's instead. Goldie's is a restaurant that was established in the 1920s, and my dad bought it from the owners 31 years ago. He was going to change the name to Sullivan's, but he felt that the name really identified the place and just felt that he couldn't change it because he loved it so much. My dad told me that some of the hardest things about running a business for him was learning all the new things about it. My dad really came into the industry without any information, and that's why I chose him to interview, because I know that he's taken such great strides since that first day of business. My dad told me that it's been a lot harder for him to find great employees since the beginning. In fact, when Goldie's opened, my whole family, which is super Irish as you might have assumed, and super big, all wanted to be in on the action. Many of my relatives and family all were working there from the start and for many years. However, as time goes by, my family formed their own families and went off and found different jobs rather than just working at Goldie's. My father had to hire new people, and he said, of course, that one of the most important things to look for is someone who is willing to do the work and will always show up. Attendance is one of the biggest things, of course, and that's something that I know working in the restaurant industry already. My dad has had to learn how to work every position in the restaurant. He knows how to be a waiter, how to serve at the bar, and of course how to cook burgers, and be a manager. He knows everything because he's had to be forced to know everything. You can't ever rely on the people who work at your restaurant. Although you need them, and of course they will help you and do their work properly for the most part, you need to be able to know how to do everything yourself. You can never assume that everything will go as planned. My father, in fact, shared with me one of his biggest mistakes as a business owner. Early on, when my father had a lot of family and friends working at the restaurant, um, it was almost more of like an activity to have so many people around, and my father was young, so he didn't really take things seriously at first. One of his friends, who also uh, didn't really think that college life was right for him, really wanted to join the partnership with my dad and help run the business. My dad, of course, said yes, feeling a bit overwhelmed being a new business owner. And for many years, he, who my father never mentions his name, stole from our restaurant. And finally, after years of doing this and my father just, not noticing him, taking things off the books, and my father trusting him because he was his best friend, he stole a very large amount of money from my family. And that was the last day that anyone saw him or the money. My father hasn't heard from anyone that knows where he is. And I think that this is one of the biggest lessons for my father, as well as the fact that it was an extremely bad time for my family. I hadn't been born yet, it was early on in the business, but it, of course, led to a fall in sales, having lack of money, and it was definitely a very hard time for my dad financially and just personally to have something like that happen. He told me that, as sad as it is, you can never trust anyone. And you can't go around life, though, hiring people and think that everyone's stealing from you because, you can't do that. You won't make friends and you won't form bonds with people, and people won't respect you as an owner if they don't think that you trust them. However, you always have to be prepared for something bad to happen. I've stated it before, but that's one of the main things that he's told me. You can never rely on something to get done unless you definitely know that you're going to do it right and do it yourself. Since then, my dad obviously has taken a much larger role in the restaurant. He, of course, checks the books, checks inventory, checks everything, and knows that he has to do it himself. And even if someone else does it, you have to check that because it's just one of those things that you can't rely on other people for. My dad has taught me that hard work, maintaining a great relationship with your customers and with your staff, keeping your chin up no matter what happens, because when a manager falls, the restaurant will fall with him. And of course, at the end of the day, there's the love for food. All of these things are what's led to my father's success for over 31 years, and I can't be more proud of him for it. I know that by attending Kendall and getting my bachelor's degree, I'll have a great head start, and I know that I'll avoid making many of the mistakes that my father had to make by trial and error. My father's a huge inspiration to me, and speaking with him allowed me to learn so much more about him as a business owner and a chef than I ever knew there was to him. I'm so proud, and I just can't believe how much I learned from this. I'm really happy about it, and I can't wait to go out there and one day open my own restaurant and have his support and knowledge to help me make it a success. Thank you.